Hey everybody. Let's kick off. My name is Jonathan Stafford. I am the Culture and Engagement Manager at the Washington Area Bicyclists Association. The Washington area is Washington, D.C., not Washington State. I work on diversity, equity, and inclusion programming and transportation equity and justice within the region. I am delighted to be joined co-hosting to this wonderful dynamic person who is a bigger personality way than I am, Lonnie Swain. Hey, Lonnie, how you doing?
Hey, Jonathan. My name is Lonnie Swain, and I am a media personality, radio and television, and I'm excited to be here once again with Equiticity, furthering this conversation about neighborhood walking tours, exploring the assets and the inequities, and just engaging in some dynamic conversation, learning a thing or two, because this world is less familiar to me. So it's always exciting to learn something new.
Absolutely. And before we get too far, I want to make sure that everyone knows that we have American Sign Language available for you. If you are in need of the ASL interpretation, please click on the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and click the American Sign Language, and they should pop up in the window for you to be able to view them. Just a quick reminder, as we're having this conversation discussion today, if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them towards the end of today's panel. All right, and just want to say thank you so very much to the dynamic people who have continuously interpreted the things that we've said. And have kept up with my rambling. Renaissance One Group for their ASL interpretation works. Thank you so very much to you all. So I am going to give an opportunity for those of us who are, for our panelists today. As much as I would love to try to tell you about them, I will do an inadequate job. I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to say who they are and what they do in their own words. All right. But today we have joining us Ruth. It's not Ross. We got Ruth. I don't mess up people's names.
Ruth Rosas.
Thank you. Ruth Rosas. Isioma Odum, and Oboi Reed. Oboi, you joining us today, panel? All right. And Oboi Reed, who you all know and love. Let's kick it off. Ruth, tell us who you are. Tell us what you do. Introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth Rosas. I work for America Walks as a program manager. I live in Chicago, and I've been working in this active transportation field for over 10 years. A lot of my work has been with pedestrian needs or doing walkability assessments with people to learn about their environment and kind of see it in a way that planners see it, so that when they have interactions and conversations, or maybe they want to attend a community meeting, they understand the language that is being used to describe their community, and then they can have more of a say and become advocates for what they want to see happening in their communities. So that's kind of the focus of my work.
Awesome. I'm gonna go to Oboi and then Isioma. Oboi, tell us who you are and tell us what you do.
Thank you, Jonathan, and hey everyone. Glad to see you all here. My name's Oboi Olatunji Oboi Reed. I am the founding president and CEO of the Equiticity Racial Equity Movement. We are operationalizing racial equity by harnessing our collective power through research, advocacy, programs, community mobility rituals, and social enterprises to improve the lives of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people in our society. Pleasure to be here with you all.
That's what's up. Thank you for bringing this wonderful cohort of folks together. Isioma, so glad to see you. I'm so glad to meet you, to have you with us today. Can you tell us who you are and tell us people what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Isioma, and I am an environmentalist. I work for an organization called Faith in Place, and then I also founded a Hike to Heal community called the Afro-Trek Tribe, where we encourage those in the African diaspora to get outside.
Nice. Cannot wait to hear more about the work that each of you are doing around neighborhood walking tours, exploring assets and inequities. Let's jump right in because I want to leave time for audience discussion and more, just more an opportunity. I don't want to hear from me all day long. So let's jump right in. And Lonnie, you want to take the first question?
Yes, I would love to hear from Ruth about some of the fundamental elements that make up a walking tour, whether that be like accessibility planning, walking tours versus walking audits. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the difference between a walking tour and a walking audit. So when you're doing a walking audit with a community, you are probably fixating more on the infrastructure or on some of the issues that are happening in the community and as the community sees it. So you're mostly dealing with people who are working with communities themselves as advocates who are living in that area or working in that area and are very knowledgeable because they have that background knowledge and history and understanding of that area. And so they'll be able to provide like a very holistic feedback as they're doing the walk audit on what they see, what they experience, and maybe those interactions that they have that maybe you don't experience when you're doing the actual walk audit, but the surrounding information. And then walking tour is a little bit different because you may not fixate so much on the actual the actual infrastructure, and you may focus more on the history or the stories that you hear from people, from the guides, from the partners who you are connecting with, and they may give you like more of the historical or cultural context of the place that you're visiting, and you may focus on specific themes. Maybe you focus on like the architecture or the food or the local culture and history, and in a walk audit you may not you may focus again more on like the actual infrastructure or some of the needs that the community has that aren't being met. And I guess like the fundamentals of this is making sure that you plan ahead with your partners, your ideal partners, which are the people who live there or work there and are knowledgeable of that area, residents of the area. And then obviously like making sure that you have a theme or a purpose of why you're going to be doing the walking tour or the walk audit. And then we always make sure that we have accessibility. So you make sure that the routes that you factor in have the resources for the people that are coming, and making sure that you're being accessible to people who walk and roll, who have different capabilities, etc. And then also making sure that you have interaction and engagement. So we're discussing different things with people, right? Whether it be like the art that they see or the actual, the cars, anything around that specific, just being very specific about like how you're actually engaging in discussion with people. So those are kind of some of the things that make up the walking tour or the walk audit. And again, there is like a difference of how you may view it, but making sure again that the biggest things are the people that you're engaging, and then your ideal partners, and then like the interactions that you're having during the walking tour and the walk audit.
Amazing, amazing. I got some really good notes from that. I'm going to be using some of that in some upcoming planning I have, because we've been talking about doing community mobility rituals ourselves. So thank you so very much for that. Isioma, can you talk us through the process of organizing a walking tour? How you serve your target audience in both the planning, but also the promoting of the event. Hikes to you, if I got that right?
Yeah, hike to you. So just to follow up with what Ruth was saying, so after you think of your concept or your theme or your series, you plan out your logistics, your location, your date, and your time. Then you scout your location and connect with the space. So you learn about the land, the native history of the land. You learn about the story of the place that you're at. So for me, I start off with what story do I want to tell to my audience? And then I pick a location that I want to share that story with my audience with. So I call my events hikes because I'm taking people kind of further away from their communities into the forest preserves. So language is an important aspect of the planning process. Some people call these events walks, and some people may call it a hike. So it's like learning about what word sounds, what resonate with people that you're trying to serve. So hiking may sound more like a challenge to some people. So you may want to pick walk as an alternative to encourage your audience to come out more. So what is your audience drawn to, or what are they withdrawn from? So, and then you use social media to promote and market your event. So there's different platforms that you can utilize. There's Instagram, Facebook, Eventbrite, Meetup. All these platforms can help get your message out and to market your event. And then after you post your event, you look at your insights for your posts. Who are the people that are liking your posts? What age are they? What nationality are they? Where are they located? So then that will help you with planning your next events or tweaking it. So a lot of it is trial and error, right? It's like, oh, I'm thinking of this great idea. I'm putting it out there. Will it be received? Like, let me check to see how people are receiving this event. So then when you get your participants out into this space or into your location, you ask them, or you share with them the name of the location, and then you ask them to share how they got their name. So then there's that connection piece to the land that you want to make sure that you're bringing in. So that begins the storytelling piece, right? So you're providing opportunities for participants, not only to learn about the land, but also learn more about each other.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Love it.
Thanks so much, Isioma. Now we're going to hear from Oboi. We want to know, how does Equiticity use walking tours to create community and get people moving and active?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so we consider neighborhood walking tours as a part of our suite of CMRs, and proud to introduce everyone to our Director of Community Mobility Rituals, Brandon Goodall, on your screen. He's going to be leading all of our CMRs work going forward. So this suite of community mobility rituals includes community bicycle rides, neighborhood walking tours, public transit excursions, group scooter rows, and open streets festivals. And briefly, this may sound familiar to some. I'll just mention the 7 elements that we consider critical to helping mobility events become community mobility rituals. So the first one that we consider the most important to helping these mobility events become ritualized is a rhythmic schedule. So this is like, there's a rhythm to the schedule. So, every Friday night, or every second Saturday of the month, or every first Sunday in July, you know, whatever that rhythm is, that's important, because when that rhythm is easy to understand and there's a hyper-local focus, it allows for greater levels of socialization, because people in the neighborhood are coming on a regular basis. You know, first they show up, they may not know anyone. They show up a few times later, they recognize faces, they start to learn names, they start to talk to people. That socialization is very powerful. Another element is we reduce barriers to participation. So we wanna lessen the reasons for people not to come. So when we do a ride, we have our bike share system Divvy bring bikes. When we do a walk, the pace is deliberately, you know, chill, so that different levels of fitness are able to participate. We want to disrupt the status quo. So we want to send a message to ourselves and others that there's something inherently wrong in our society, namely structural racism and racial capitalism. So we have to disrupt. We have to be disruptive. You know, just going about our daily lives is not going to be transformative. We have to do something that disrupts the way our society is structured. Another one is we like to create shared customs, from a movement to a greeting to a call and response. Shared customs are powerful because they help people to cement social bonds between people. And everything I'm talking about, while we consider these the elements that make mobility events ritualized, they also contribute to the work we're doing, helping create a social movement. Another element is, I'm going off memory here. Let's see. Okay, my memory is not that good. People probably remember some of the things I've said in the past, so I'll stop there. And I'll just say that when we think about social movement, we have a process that we like to take people through. Number one is mobilization. Number two is education. Number three is organization. Number four is activation. And number five is transformation. So the mobilizing is introducing people to our work. And that one, our most powerful vehicle for introducing people to our work is our CMRs. So that's oftentimes the first opportunity people begin to learn about equiticity. The next one is education. So that's teaching people about the inequities that exist in our neighborhoods and about the assets. How do we solve for the inequities, and how do we leverage the assets to improve our neighborhoods? Next step is activation. So as people begin to learn about these challenges and potential solutions, are we able to engage them in our work to help operationalize racial equity? And then the next step is organization. So we want to find ways to, you know, disperse people, from organizing events to being a part of our advocacy work, supporting our research work. We organize people. And then the final step is transformation. The reason we do this work is to dismantle structural racism, dismantle racial capitalism, remove racialized inequities, and improve the lives of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. That's what we want to see as a result of this work.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, now you are.
If it's talking, no one
talking to yourself. Yeah.
Talking to myself, and no one can hear what I'm saying. I said some good stuff while y'all couldn't hear me. I think we want to, I tried to put in the chat so everybody could catch the seven elements. We'll make sure we share that out in the chat so that people can have those to refer back to. Ruth, can you share a little bit of the research and data on the impact that walking tours have had on improving outcomes for our neighborhoods and the people within them?
Yeah, so we know there's a lot of research around like walking and how good it is for health. We know that like walkable neighborhoods are like something that provide, maybe connection for people. They can give people like a sense of community or enhance people's sense of place. But, as we're talking about like walking and what it means, we know that for people who maybe live in a neighborhood, as they walk around their community, these places are also a place where they have like these informal gatherings or maybe informal meeting places. Like Oboi said, when people are walking or gather in a place, they may interact with the same person over and over. So these neighborhoods or these places in neighborhoods where people walk to may be spaces of connection or places where people exchange ideas. So the research is really limited on walking tours, but we know that when people go out and walk into a neighborhood and they have like an experience where they learn the historical context and they understand that place better, we know that that also kind of that unfamiliar becomes more familiar, and that engagement is also really important for people to become comfortable and understand places maybe that they wouldn't have gone to or understood before. We also know that walking tours allow people to hear stories and learn about a community's identity and how people in that community interact, how they act, why they make the choices that they do. And maybe these stories aren't things that they would normally hear on the news or they would read about. So that's why it's, these kind of events and walking tours are really important. We also know that walkability is like a huge driver of creativity and innovation, right? When you walk in a place that's very walkable, there's usually murals or there's like stories that people hear. And so these places are also, or walking is a form of inspiration and collaboration, because we know that when we're walking, we may have these interactions, we may see things that we may not normally see if we're in a car or if we're going to places that we're used to. And so kind of that collaboration, right, when you're in a space, when you're like learning about a space, those can organically happen. And so there needs to be more research about the impact that it actually has on communities. A lot of this, comes from things that we hear as we work with communities, especially if they've done walk audits before and things like that. That kind of storytelling emerges out of it. But it is really important that, we value that sense of like coming together and exploring a place, because that exploration is like such a basic human thing that we have and we all share.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ruth. And now, while you are listening and enjoying the conversation, don't forget to drop any questions that you may have in the Q&A box, and we will be getting to those as soon as we finish up with the panel discussion. Right now, Isioma, I'd like to know, can you talk about the importance and the impact of reconnecting Black people with both nature and physical activity, and why that's so important?
Yeah. So historically, as we know, Black people were ripped from our native home and forced to tend to land that was stolen. My ancestors were hung from trees, and while our oppressors watched, right? So it has created this fear of these natural spaces in our culture. So the historical context helps us to recognize that land destruction and exploitation, like by our oppressors, has pulled us away from examining the natural world. So we're surrounded now by all man-made things. And that keeps us at a disadvantage mentally, physically, and even spiritually. So because it causes a distraction, right? So we don't remember how powerful nature can be. But native land is sacred, and it has the ability to heal us if we can find solace there. So I'm lucky enough to work for Faith in Place, which is an environmental organization that talks a lot about racial justice and environmental justice. So I add that piece into AfroTrek as well, because environmental racism, BIPOC people have been left out of the environmental movement. So when we talk about climate change and issues of our environment that need urgent attention, we are often not represented or recognized in those spaces. So in order for us to kind of move through things as a country, we need to include BIPOC people in those movements. Including us in those movements will also encourage us to get outside more. So one would have to ask, like, without nature, would we have even made it this far, right? Because yes, reconnecting with nature means addressing the fear of it, and but also it addresses that nature served as a vehicle for Black people to journey through to find freedom, right? So they went through nature to hide, and so they use nature as a way to get to freedom. So if we can remember how to appreciate what nature has done for us and the medicine that nature provides to heal our bodies, we can show appreciation for nature through different ways, right? So we can enjoy its spaces. We can steward the land. We can learn about farming. We can learn about native plants that have medicine to help us. We can work together and collaborate with other organizations to care for our common home. So I don't know anyone that doesn't want clean air and clean water. I've never met a single soul. So how can we sustain the things that we want? So bringing those conversations into the space so we can talk about the reconnecting. We must acknowledge first, though, the wrongdoings that have been done to historical wrongdoings that have been done to us as Black people, and then remind us that we can find restoration in those spaces, because we can remember that when we once did, right? And so we can find that again, and just being intentional about that. So AfroTrek Tribe is all about like holistic healing. So we provide a lot of opportunities, not just hiking, but also like healing retreats and healing circles out in nature, because people need options and they need to be able to pull like different experiences or go to different experiences so they can have like more things in their healing toolkit to pull from to help them with their healing journey.
Yeah. All right. Turning back to you, Oboi. Talk to us a little bit, if you can, about Equiticity's origin, their origin story, right? And how does Equiticity utilize physical activity as a part of a social movement?
Sure. I'll start by acknowledging we had a colleague who was scheduled to be with us today. His name is Nelson Mendez. He is the chief of staff at the Grupo Cultural Olodum organization in Salvador, Bahia, Brazil. He is his health is not good today, so he sends his with regards. And I also want to acknowledge someone I consider a teacher, Senora Professora Doctora Damiana de Miranda, who's on the webinar. She is someone who I consider a teacher and a friend, and she connected us with Olodum. So some people may not know, I used to live in Brazil. I lived in Salvador for about 4 months in 2012. And that experience has informed the work I do with Equiticity. So that has a strong connection to our origin story. I'll be brief here. For me, it started with bikes as a tool for addressing my own mental health. I struggle with depression, and I turned to bikes as a vehicle to help with that. And a strong part of my interest was introducing more Black and brown people to the activity of cycling. After co-founding Slow Road Chicago and leading that organization for about 3 years, it was during a time in our society where we were inundated with visuals of Black people being murdered by the police, and this global racial reckoning happening around the world. I started to want to expand my work. I wanted to expand my work geographically. I wanted to expand my work across other modes of travel, and expand my work beyond transportation. And all of that led to me founding Equiticity. And from the beginning, it was important for me to center culture in our work, to center the history of Black, brown, and Indigenous people in our work. And that's one of the reasons, as some may have noticed, this year's webinar series has been more of a global affair. On our first webinar, we had Jaime from Bogota, Colombia. On our second webinar, we had Moro from Medellin, Colombia. On this webinar, we were planning to have Nelson from Salvador, Brazil. Our final webinar next Friday, we'll have a young woman from London and a young brother from London. So we want to make this global connection, and we want to tie into culture and history. We want to live that culture and history throughout our work, so that all of that together contributes to creating a social movement.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, if you have any questions, you can drop those in the Q&A and we'll be getting to those shortly if you have any. But right now, I want to pose this question to all of our panelists, and whoever feels compelled can kind of jump in. Do you serve a primary audience, and how do you target that audience and ensure that their needs are being met?
Yeah. So I target those in the African diaspora with Afro Trek Tribe, mostly focusing on the relationship between African immigrants and Black Americans, and building that group to like appreciate each other, and creating opportunities for them to grow and learn from each other's cultures. So how I target that is I do a lot of education and try to provide more historical context of African spirituality. And I'm half African. I'll just say that, like, well, we're all African, but I'm Nigerian and my mom is American. So I've always been kind of in this middle section with these two huge important groups that, and I've seen the tension between them, and I wanted to try to do what I can to help mend that relationship. So I've tried to invite both demographics out and do it in a way that's like, you know, just kind of lighthearted and just having fun. And then something about a hike that is really like important for me is like, it could be the hardest hike. I did the hardest hike I've ever done when I went to the Caribbean last year. It was extremely long, and it was hills and it was rivers, and we struggled through it. It was a group of people from all over the country. We didn't know each other. We struggled through it. And then when we got to the top of, when we finished that hike, it bonded us. It bonded us for life. We now are like lifetime friends from that one experience. So it's like moments like that that keep me encouraged. Like, yes, like I'm on the right path. Like I need to pull more people into this space. So I try to use social media as a vehicle to kind of drive people in, whether it's through art, music, and to get them excited about opportunities, networking opportunities. And then, you slip in the nature piece, like, oh, by the way, we're having this retreat. You can learn more about, racial healing, or how to volunteer for the forest preserves. So try to make it exciting by appealing to what people like, music, art, and drawing them in through that way.
Awesome. Anyone else want to respond to that?
We don't have a specific target audience, but we do make sure to, at least at America Walks, we make sure to address the intersections between a lot of identities. So some of the programs that we have, like our community change grants, we award them to a variety of communities. We know that sometimes specifically rural communities may not have the funding or assets to talk or think about walkability because car-centric type of planning seems to take over. So we do make sure to do some outreach to them. And then we also have a program called the Walking College, which is going on now, but different states around the US get a group of fellows from that community, and they're usually a diverse set of people, and they talk about the different things that are happening in their communities, and they come up with a walking action plan. So it's a way to, it's a lot of capacity building for advocacy. So we teach people how to engage in advocacy within their communities, and then think about the ways that they can actually create a more walkable community. But we are focused on a variety of issues, and we don't particularly have a target audience.
Okay. Awesome. Let's move to the next. I'm looking to see if there were any more questions in the Q&A. I'm not seeing any. If you have a question, now is the time to ask. Otherwise, y'all gonna have to hear these heartfelt questions that I have, i.e. personal and selfish. Oboi, I want to give you an opportunity here. I know your philosophy on a lot of this, but what impacts have you witnessed because of neighborhood walking tours? What impacts have you witnessed that have been transformative for community?
Sure, I appreciate the question, Jonathan. I'll focus on our Chicago Park District Walk series. I trust there's a lot of people on this call from Chicago, and even people who are not from Chicago and have visited Chicago, you will know that one of the things Chicago is known for are our beautiful parks. We have some massive, beautiful parks in our city. And oftentimes in Black and brown neighborhoods, because of our deep concerns around violence, we may not engage in that space at the same level that white people and predominantly white middle to upper income neighborhoods engage in their parks. So our Parks Walk series is a way to reconnect people with these beautiful parks in our communities. And what I see that's transformative is people, one, seeing things that exist in our parks that they had no idea was there. I'll give a quick example. On the south side of Chicago, we got a park called Washington Park. And it's massive. It's in the Washington Park, Hyde Park area. So not too far from where Obama has a home. It's beautiful. It has, all of these secret little pathways and these big open fields and all of this fauna and flora all over the place. My father, been in Chicago most of his life, grew up on the South Side, spent a lot of time in Hyde Park, walks at Washington Park. He helped me on one of our walking tours through Washington Park and saw some things in that park that he had never seen before. He was blown away that he had been around this park his entire life, because oftentimes you have to like suspend fear, because really seeing what the parks have to offer requires you to like delve into some spaces that might feel a little bit uncomfortable. So we do that because we're with a group, and we help each other feel safe. So he saw some things that he had never seen before, and that was transformative for him. So now he's able to go back to that park with a whole new perspective and exploring things again and again that he, after being here all of his life, had never experienced. So using that as an example, getting more and more of our people in our neighborhoods to feel a sense of ownership in our parks and engaging in our parks, showing up, having a picnic, taking family to the park, participating in the park. All of that work helps us to make our parks more safe. The more safe our parks are, the more people in our neighborhoods begin to engage in the park. It's like this snowball effect that, to Isioma's point, to Ruth's point, is transformative as we in our neighborhoods start to reconnect with nature.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oboi. And Jonathan, I think our questions have been so good. That's why the audience didn't have any. But if you go through the day and then you decide you have a question, I want everybody to let the audience know how they can get in touch with you. If you have any upcoming events, social media, websites, all those good things. Ruth, will start with you.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we're working on right now is the National Week Without Driving. And so this kicked off in Washington State in 2021. And basically the goal is to get elected leaders to take on a week without driving in October so that they understand the needs and the experiences that non-drivers have. This started with a disability rights group. And so the focus is on people that don't have, the ability to make that choice to drive. And because there's people that can make the choice to not drive, maybe they walk or bike, and that's like their preferred way to get around. But there's people that don't have that choice, and they either have to take public transportation or have to walk long distances in order to get to where they want to. And so we're kicking off this campaign. If you're interested in getting elected leaders to do a week without driving so they can understand the very real needs that people have in their communities, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and I'm happy to talk about it with anybody who's interested.
Awesome. Isioma?
Yes. So like I mentioned before, I also work for an organization called Faith in Place. And so we throw a lot of events throughout the Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Actually, we've expanded. So all of our events are free, and we offer mostly to houses of worship. This is our primary audience, but we work with communities as well. So we have annual events every year, and one of our events is the Double Dutch Fest, which is coming up on July 15th at Rainbow Beach in South Shore. So this is a family-friendly event. We're inviting young people to come out and learn how to double Dutch if they don't know. We have instructors there. We'll have games, food. It's a lot of fun. So I'll plug that one in, and I'll put the link as well. And then Afro Trek, we are going to begin our nature retreats coming up this summer. Our first one is in July. That one is already sold out, but when we have another one, I'll be posting about it through our social media. So I will provide the link for that as well. And with those, we just do a series of things. We do bird watching. We do racial healing circles in nature. And then we do a hike. So it's just a way to be in nature for a weekend and explore different camps and nature preserves. And then also I want to mention, just to emphasize that collaboration piece, right? So I am an ambassador for the outdoor tour, We Hike to Heal, which is an organization based out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's a Black-owned women's organization, and they have different ambassadors throughout the country. So I'll be hosting different hikes with them. And the first one for that is on May 21st, which is a Sunday from 9:30 to 12:30. So it's a short hike. It's about our walk, I would say. It's more of a walk. It's only 4 miles. And then after that, we'll come around and do a short healing circle where we'll do some journaling. You could bring a lunch and just connect with each other after the hike. And I'll plug that in as well.
Thank you. Oboi, how do people get in touch with you and Equiticity's work?
Sure. Thank you, Lonnie. Equiticity, check out our website, equiticity.org. Our season is getting underway soon. So our events page will have all of our upcoming CMRs, social media at Equiticity on Twitter and Instagram, and Equiticity on Facebook and LinkedIn. And we'll have a full season of CMR. So we look forward to moving around our city in various forms of transportation, including walking this season. And I do want to answer a couple of quick questions I see in our Q&A and chat. So my dear friend, Romina, who's also a former colleague of mine with Slow Road Chicago, she asked, what can cities and the public sector do to support CMRs? So what I would say to Romina, who probably knows my answer on this, and hopefully it'll benefit everyone, is that in our society, we spend significant amounts of money on physical infrastructure from the government. You know, the government is spending a significant amount of money on physical infrastructure, roads and transit. You know, that's the physical infrastructure. Our government does not spend much money on social infrastructure, which we consider community mobility rituals. So one of the things I would advocate for the city of Chicago, other cities, other departments of transportation, metropolitan planning organizations, Department of Plannings in cities across the country, is to invest financial resources in the community-based organizations that are doing rides and walks and other mobility events to socialize people around the act of mobility. And then I think I saw a question from someone about a potential partnership. The answer is yes. My dear brother, Brandon Goodall, who's on the call, is your point of contact. He's leading our CMR. So feel free to go to our website. You'll find our contact information and get in touch with Brandon. So that question came from Eric Leonardson. All right, thank you.
And did you see, there's one more, Oboi, that anyone can answer. What do you do to boost your mental health outside when you aren't leading any CMRs?
Anybody want to take that one? I'm happy to share some thoughts. Well, one of the most joyous moments in my life is to be on a bike ride. So this is, I know we're talking about walking, but I'm going to use the example of a bike ride with a bunch of young people who I've watched grow up in North Lawndale in partnership with an amazing organization called Boxing Out Negativity. We got some music. It's a Friday night, beautiful weather, and we're riding around the neighborhood. I don't have to be leading. I'm just on the ride with these young people, listening to some cool music and having a beautiful time. Like that is, beyond being with my daughter, that is like the highlight of my life. And I consider it healing. Going to those rides just puts it all in perspective. It helps me helps me manage my depression.
Awesome. And I knew people were going to start getting their questions together right when we were finishing up. And one more, how to work with young people who want to spend the whole day on social media. How do you get them out into the nature and appreciating walking and biking and all of those things? Anyone want to take that? It's a tough one, I know.
Well, I'll say this, and Ruth and Isioma, please jump in. I'll say this. Young people don't want to be around a lot of old folks. So my suggestion, when your primary audience is young people, do it with them and for them. So work in partnership with youth serving organizations. Your communication is going to young people. Young people are part of the planning process. They're helping lead it. They're helping organize it. They're listening to their music. Create a CMR, whether it be a walking tour or other kind of CMR, specifically for them and in partnership with them. And be open to how they want to move around. When they ride bikes, they might want to do a wheelie. When they listen to some of their music, it might be a little cursing in it. Be open to how they create an environment that they feel comfortable in.
Right. Huge.
Yeah. And just to go off that too, like I'm currently going to be working with a young group of people at Excel Academy here in South Shore, and plugging them into learning about gardening with one of the houses of worship that I work with. And that particular school really tries to do different projects and activities for the young people to explore, to see what they like. And I think just making it fun and encouraging them, like saying that it's fun and not making it seem that it's a burden to be outside and to learn about these native plants, and just kind of going off the aspect of like, we want to learn what we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies. Our bodies are sacred. How can we treat our bodies better? And getting them to understand that importance first, and then going into learning about farming or gardening. And actually, a lot of young people think that that's cool to learn about those things. And then also we, like through Faith in Place, we have a youth program where we actually pay young people to learn about environmental racism. So they go through a year-long program where they meet virtually, and then they go on site visits through the city. And then they work on an environmental justice project at the end, and then they present this project to the community. So it's an incentive that they get a little bit of money to learn about this topic. And then also it helps inform them as they grow into, their older years about their communities and how they may have health disparities that are impacted by their communities. So we like to connect that piece as well with the young people.
I don't think there's much I can add. I think I always think about when I was young, and like what Oboi said, I didn't really want to hang out with old people or what I thought were old people. I wanted to like hang out with my friends. And I think one of the biggest challenges was like finding a space. So I think a lot of it is like creating spaces for young people to come together so that they can hang out with one another, because those connections organically grow. It's like just providing that opportunity. We are partnering with the National Organizations for Youth Safety. I don't know if you've ever checked them out, but if not, you should check them out. They're going to be doing a youth transportation equity fellowship, and we're going to be providing some mentorship and education with them on that. And they also have like a lot of resources for young people and do some youth programs. So partnerships are also really great.
Yeah, huge. Awesome. We are close to time, and I would be remiss if I did not say these two things. One, it has been such a pleasure to be a part of these community mobility rituals, which will continue next Friday May the 26th with the fourth part of this series, which is on bike life. Y'all speaking about young people not want to be around old people. Well, next week, the young people gonna have to be around at least one old person. And I'm looking forward to it. So bike life, the ride out culture and movement, same time at 12 Central next week. I'm so looking forward to that. And for those of you who are not already connected with the work that Equiticity is doing, on May the 14th, the kickoff of the walk season has begun with the Nature of Magic Walk Tour series on May 14th at Humboldt Park. And we will be meeting every second Sunday at 11 a.m. with walk starting at 11:30. Please, if you are in the Chicagoland area or be planning to be traveling in the Chicagoland area during that time and during that series, join them for those walks. They will be an amazing experience. I am certain of it. And then please stay close to the website and follow us on all social media channels to learn about Equiticity's upcoming community mobility rituals in the Chicago, starting now through spring and into the fall. One last thing, I haven't done this, and I'm going to put her on the spot, and I'm sorry for this. Lonnie, we've been doing this for a few weeks now, and we've not told the people how to connect with us. How do the people connect with what you're doing in the world and follow you on social media?
They can follow me on Instagram at Lonnie Swain, LONISWAIN. That's the best way to find me and everything that I'm doing. And what about you? And I even put it in my title today, which I switched it up and did that. So what about you?
Yeah, real easy to find me. I am Jonathan R. Stafford, Jonathan, the letter R, Stafford at everywhere. So if you're looking for me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, if you see me on Twitter, that's not me. I've abandoned it. But you can find me everywhere at Jonathan R. Stafford at wherever you're looking for, including gmail.com. Happy to connect with you all.